Zayin. The Rebbe asked, the Rebbe asked another question that the Rambam ends off the halacha base by saying if you don't escort him, it's like pouring his blood. But in the beginning, he just says that it's greater than everything else is to escort. But escorting is a lot more than greater than everything else. It's like pouring blood. How do we reconcile the beginning and the end? Vov. Let's look inside. Also, we require explanation. The Rambam begins, Schar halavoya meruba min hakoil. So he says basically the reward for escorting is greater than everything, than all the parts of Vachnos Sorchim. Unogdem firterus, and then he concludes, Amru Chachamim, the Chachamim said, Kol she'einu malave, anyone who doesn't escort, kilu shefech dam is as pouring blood. Meaning it's much serious than just greater. It's like pouring blood means like killing the person. Valderech zeh brengt in der halacha shel acher zeh legabe bezdin. And similar, he brings in the next halacha with regards to bezdin. It says, "Bezdin hoy mesaknim shluchim lelavis odom, however mokum lemokum." That bezdin would send agents to escort people who go from place to place. And if they were lazy, then it counts on them as if they poured blood. So, saying this also, so what is this pouring of the blood if you don't escort and if the Beis Din doesn't send people to escort? Was learn the pashtus is their tam. There's a learning it simply. What's the reason? Was heder halvoyes kilu shefech damim? Why is it that if you don't escort, is like you're pouring the blood? Because when you escort him, that's how you make sure that this guest should not be killed on the road if he doesn't have an escort. The Gemara brings the evidence in Masechta Soita, what could happen without escorting. Is it move on? Since we're saying that the greatness of escorting is so big, as behedra is kilu shefech damim, that when it's lacking, it's like you're pouring blood. Is the mile of uschar alvoyim meruba min hakoil. So, just to tell you in the beginning, the reward of escorting is greater than everything else, but it's like in vergleich the meat. Atofel is secondary. It's like killing him if you're not going to escort him. So why are we saying it's greater than everything? It's not just greater than everything. It's protecting. It's like you're killing him because you're not protecting him. And then in 200 we have 100. So if it's like, so what does it make sense to say that it's very great schar when if you don't do it, it's like pouring blood. This is difficult in the order, in the way the Rambam first says that escorting is a great mitzvah. And then the Rambam says, if you don't escort him, it's like he would pour his blood. So why would we even say it's a great mitzvah when it's included? If you don't escort him, it's like pouring his blood. Seems to be a lot more than just a great mitzvah. The Rebbe is going to explain what it means, kilu shefech damim over here. And the Rebbe explains also the whole idea is that by Gemilas Chasodim, there's a requirement to show the poor person, not just to feed him, but to show him, and that takes place through escorting, as the Rebbe explains now. Right. So we can say the point of the explanation in all of this. In the minyan for Gemilas Chasodim and the Bechlal Tzvei Pratim, in the idea, in the subject of acting kindly, generally there is two details. Aleph, number one is what you accomplish, the nifal from their mitzvah. what is accomplished on the mitzvah. Was mit sein Meise von Gemilus Chasodim. Because when you do an act of kindness, you fill a lacking of your friend, or or you bring a benefit to your friend. So that's what's accomplished. Beis, the Pula Mitzad Gavra, the act that the person does, which means it's not so much what you the benefit, but your act, the act of the person, the midas hachesed and the chesed, the character of the attribute of kindness of the one who acts kindly. So this is in general. We talk about Gimel Chasodim. Specifically, when we talked about Achnos Orchim. Kein ze in Achnos Orchim veran die zwei Broten. Similarly, in Achnos Orchim there are the two details. Aleph, the Nyonim was der Eirach Bakumt. Those are the items that the guest receives, the Meichel Mashke, the food and the drink, durch the Pula Proteus, through the Pula is Proteus, through the specific actions. Base number 2, the Midas HaChesed of the Baal HaBayis HaMareach. There is the attribute of kindness of the owner, the one who is hosting. This anyanus v'simas leiv v'servais tarois the moirach. The interest and the attention that he shows to the guest. Generally speaking, the most important thing is what the person receives. B'chlal is by Gemilas Chasodim, generally by matters in which you're acting, giving kindness, generally between person and his friend, it's mainly important what you accomplished. The toiv, the te'elas was chaveir bakom bepoil. The favor, the benefit that your friend actually receives. Und die midas hachesed von dem Odom hagoimel chesed. And what about the emotion, the attribute of kindness of the person who does kindly? Is big negeya beiker nitzum Odom hamakabel hachesed. Is not really important, mainly to the person who receives the kindness. Bismen gefind nur zu dem Gabra hagoimel chesed. The kindness is yours. It has to do with the person doing it. But the recipient isn't really important to them what the giver thought or what his kindness is. The bottom line is he wants to get what he needs. To the extent we find by tzedakah, as if you lose a seller from your hand, and a poor person finds in the whole of his partner's ball, and he goes and he gets his livelihood from that, what you lost. So even though you're even regretting, you're looking, you didn't want to, you lost it. You didn't want it to go elsewhere, but still, he gained from it. He's a Mekayim mitzvah tzedakah. You're fulfilling mitzvah tzedakah. Why? Because the main thing is what the person receives. But when it's talking about inviting guests, there is a special novelty over here. As the midas hachesed, that attribute of kindness, the hergesh hachesed from the Baal Habayis HaMareach, that feeling of kindness of the host, the owner who hosts, is negayet to the nifel. That is actually important by chnosus orchim to what is being accomplished. The peulos was metut farn oirach, the actions that you do for the oirach, it's important the feeling of the chesed of the balabais. The achnosas orchim darf getom werden beoifen. The inviting, bringing in the guest needs to be done in such a way as the oirach soll margish sein, that the guests should feel as alle pulos from the ma'areach, that all the actions of the host, bishvile for him, seine mitzad sein his anunus, is because of his interest, mitzad sein regesh, because of his feeling. Avas Yisrael, the love of their fellow Jew, kemerumas b'divram Rambam, as hinted in the words of the Rambam, as kol mitzvahs elu harei bechlal v'havta l'recha kamoicha. All of these mitzvahs are part of avas l'recha kamoicha. So You should feel that this is part of the love, that a fellow loves you. That's why he does it. That's a chiddush, b'achnosis orchim. This feeling of special love, attention, comes across openly when you escort them after the meal, after filling his needs. Und das drückt sich aus in dem chiyuv l'lavis orchim. That expresses itself in the obligation to escort the guest. Warum Levia is not kein Inyan from Malazain Tzirachim. Escorting is not the idea of fulfilling his needs. Shaloyrach of the guest. Ben Erizat Veirach, at the time that he's still a guest. Like when you provide for him eating and drinking, etc. That's at the time that he's your guest. When you escort him, but that's mainly, escorting comes because of the measure of acting kindly. It's your attribute of kindness. Even after your connection has finished, because he's no longer eating, he's no longer a guest, he's gone on his way. So when you escort him, the guest feels as that everything that you done already before him, kumdos mitzadem hergesh alev from the balabayis amarech, that comes because of the feeling of the heart of the one who hosts him, the fact that after the meal he troubled himself to walk with him. That means that everything else he did for him was not just to fill his needs, but it was something that he's acting of his mitzvah chesed. As sich misanyan in him, he has an interest in him. And his negei tevosa, he wants his benefit, etc., his goodness, and he's walking with him. Ches. And this is now the Rebbe going to bring this in. This is the Rambam telling us. This is the flow in the words of the Rambam. The reward for escorting is more than everything else. That's the rule that Avraham Avinu has established, has engraved, and that's the path of kindness that he followed. He fed them, and he gave them to drink. What are we talking about here? What is this rule that Avram established? That does not apply only to the act of escorting, that is the chok. This is just the general attitude, the general way how to invite guests. As Avraham Avinu hat eingestellt Achnosus Orchim b'oifim kazeh. Our father Avram, he set up Achnosus Orchim in such a way that those soll enthalten nicht nur the Meise v'nifel von Gimilus Chassadim. That was what he established. It should not just contain the act and what's accomplished from the act of kindness, which is Tzrachov Shel Oirech, the needs of the guest, nor Oir the Midas HaChesed Shel Balabayis HaMarech, but also the measure of kindness of the owner, the host, who hosts. But this is the Derech HaChesed Shenoag Bo. That's the path of Chesed that he established, that he accustomed. As Levius Ha'orchim kum zusammen mit dem was machil over drachem mashke oisom. That to escort the guest comes together with feeding them, giving them to drink, because this is all for the measure of chesed to be there. That's the derech chesed. And this will also explain, the Rebbe says, what it means shofech domim. Doesn't mean literally as we understood it before, because somebody's going to attack the guest and therefore is not safe. But shofech damim means when the person realizes, if you don't escort him, he realizes that you don't really care about him. I know you fed him, but you don't really care. We can also explain the end of the Rambam's word. Omru Chachamim, the sages say, Kol she'einem alave kilu shefer damim. Anybody who doesn't escort is as if he was pouring blood. As dos is oile, the kone echon mit mailas halabiyah. This actually goes in one together at the same time as we're talking about the greatness, what's so special of escorting. That the reward for escorting is more than everything else that the Rambam started off. It's the very same thing. The Rambam meint on it nor. The Rambam doesn't just mean as dos can bring shmichas the that this can bring to the pouring of the blood of the guest as he's going on the road. It could also is a feeling pouring out the blood of the guest. When the host does not escort, so he sees as es felt these that you're lacking the interest and the devotion. The midas hachesed in der pula, the attribute of kindness in this act. Gebt him nit ein the achnosas orchim. Then he's not really doesn't really enjoy. He has no benefit from the achnosas orchim. And he quotes from the Gemara, Ozil sumkav osikivra, the red leaves and the white comes. That's called shefech domim. When you embarrass someone, that's called that you're pouring his blood because the face is usually red, and when he gets embarrassed, he gets white. So the red leaves, that's like pouring the blood. And this guest feels like disappointed in the sense that he didn't really care about it. He feels a shame. Hashichas domim. It's like pouring the blood. So the Rebbe learns when it says Sheikh Domim means when he senses that it's not really acting kindness and it's not your kindness, it's just then it is then it's not, it's like pouring his blood. Ashvikas Domim. Well, derech v'tzedakah, just similar to tzedakah, was darf. Gegeben werden b'sefer panim yoches u'b'simcha. Tzedakah has to be given with a good face and with joy. When the Eisen is misainen im alzarose, and the one who's giving is together, is crying along, he's in pain along together with the person who's troubled, who doesn't have. But as opposed to when you give tzedakah to the poor person at a bad face, your faces, your faces, you don't look at it. Then you lost your merit and you've lost out on it, as the Rambam writes in Hilchos Matanas Agyanim. So basically, by tzedakah, you see also that there has to be done with a good face. Here is by Chnos Orchim, needs to be done with a good face. Otherwise, it's like losing the mitzvah because it's like Shefek Dam. And so it's now different than the beginning. This is the great reward because it has to be with the feeling, with the apparent that it comes out of kindness. So now move on their time. So now we also understand the reason was that Rambam tell Toys from Mitzach Nos Erchim, nor the meaning from the Lavis Erchim. Why does the Rambam distinguish, separate of the Mitzach Nos Erchim just to escort Erchim? For Davki in them drikt sich ois, because it's specifically in escorting that it expresses an Iker ba mitzvah nach Nos Erchim, something main in the mitzvah of inviting guests. The Sima slave zum Eurech, the attention that you pay to the guest. Noch mehr. B'shas es fel de levia, when you are lacking the escorting, demult felt euch in der mitzvah von achnosas Eurchen. If you don't escort, then the mitzvah of Nosorchim is also lacking. In the Achille Shtia was everything gegeben that he already gave him, Kinal. As I said before, if you don't do it with a Sega Parim Yofis, you can lose. It's lacking. The person you fed is not really happy about it. So Therefore, the Rambam brings Levia because that is the expression of that care that you have about the person, and but that really demonstrates everything else you did. And Abraham established that that's an important part when it comes to Achnas Yisrael. So now Tes, because Yesh Loimar. So based on all the above, we can say as das ist der Tam, for was der Rambam bringt der Mocker of Gedeilach, no Sorg Magbot Neshchina. The reason the Rambam brings the source that greater is inviting get than greeting of the Shechina from Posik, from the verse, Vayera Nishloish Anoshim Yisod is three men. Und in Mishnah von der Gemara, was lernt das auch von Posik over there, in the Mishnah that learns the Posik, Vayemer Hashem Ad No Sabir, don't pass. Why did the Rambam change from the Gemara? Because das kommt der Hemshech zum Teuchen von der Halacha. The Rambam's writing comes as a continuation to the idea, the content that he was teaching us in the Halacha. That rule that he established, that he engraved, and the path of Chesed that he conducted. As an Iker in Achnos Zorchim, which Avraham Avinu has done, that he made it to be something main in inviting guests is the Midas HaChesed, Shabazeh is the measure of kindness. This Anyanus Visimas Lev, the interest and the attention to the Meirach, to the guest. Ados is nit nor be'eis metud di Maisa von Achnos Zorchim. It's not just at the time that you do the act of Achnosas Erchim, when there is Meichel over the when he's feeding them, and later on, this is even starts before. Take him b'shaser zet. As soon as he sees Nemt over the Erchim, he's just greeting and accepting these guests. Is Negeya the Sima slave, this Anyus in the Meirach, that it's important. The attention and the interest in the guest. You have to do this right in the beginning. Und das drückt sich aus in Posik. This expresses itself in the verse, Vayera Nishloish Anoshim, Kinalsi Beis, that he saw there's three men. And at Mesim Lev given, he paid attention to the Gimel Anoshim. He paid attention to three people in mitten HaKabbalah's Pnei Shechina, while he was in the middle of greeting the Shechina, and still he took an interest. This shows you that there is an interest over here. The Rambam brings this pasuk because this pasuk tells us that Avraham had an interest in them, and that's why he paid attention even while he was Kabbalah's Pnei Shechina. Which the Rebbe says, by the way, this idea answers another very important question. It turns out that Avram didn't really do Achnosas Orchim because there was angels. How could we learn everything? It's sort of a fake thing. But the main thing that we learn over here is the Vayar, the Sima slave, which was true, even if this our angels are not guests. Yud. Apikol Hanal can reference based on all the above, we can answer Noch HaShaila, an additional question. Yud. Apikol Hanal can reference Noch HaShaila. Based on the above, we can answer another question. In them uplernen von Avromen, that we learn from Avrom, as Gedailo, Achnosas Erchim, Magbolos Pnei Shechina, that it's greater bringing in the guest than greeting the Shechina. Soif. Because the problem is there's something, a question that in the end of Tzachar is gewesen, and it turned out as mit Maichel und Mashke sein, the Gimel Anoshim, that when he fed and gave to drink the three people, hat Avram nit mekayim given a mitzvah von Achnosas Erchim. He didn't fulfill the mitzvah of Achnosas Erchim. But mentioned because they weren't really people. Nor Malachim, Malachim that don't need to eat. Especially according to the opinion, there's two opinions. One said they pretended to eat, but some says they have not gegessen. Some say they did eat, but there's an opinion that they didn't eat. It appeared as if they ate. When I feel like that day, and even according to the other opinion, as they actually ate and drank, ich is doch das nicht gewend der Fahr, that wasn't the Fahr, was sie haben sich genötigt. It's not that they needed to eat over there, that wasn't the reason. In der Achille Vishtiya, that they needed to eat and drink, nor blois mitnei kvodesh Avram. They did it to honor Avram. So they ate and drank. Other to leave them was Oslas Lekarta, Osl ben Dolach ben Muse. The Gemara says, if you come to a city, you follow its traditions. So they were by people, they ate like people. Bemela, but because of all this, is bepoil, does not given hachnosas ugmilus chasod lorchem. It wasn't accepting, bringing in, or acting kindly to guests. So this would be very surprising. There was no real achnos in there. Aleph, if you say as lamita shel dover, lamitos shel dover, is not given kiyum mitzvah achnos zorchim, that even the truth of the matter, there was no fulfillment of the mitzvah of achnos zorchim. Tormen doch nicht zu lieb dem afsik sein, hagbolos pnei shchina. So then you're not allowed to interrupt the greeting of the Shekhinah when you're not really inviting guests. Is wie Shaychas Avram Avinu zol cholila nichshel werden. So how is it possible? How does it fit that Avram Avinu should, God forbid, he should stumble on Iberlos Nakbolos Pnei Shekhinah? He left the greeting, the divine, and he didn't even invite the guests because they weren't really guests. Bays. The other question it would be, it's difficult to say as well, let him top adin, emes, that you learn something, halacha, truth, from such an act was his be'emes nid given achnos, which in truth was not the achnos. So therefore we have to say, as chodj the orchim from Avram Avinu, seine gewen nor bidmus anoshim, even though they just were in the image of people. Und deswegen yet hat Gott nicht gefällt in der Achnossos Orchim from Avram Avinu. There was nothing lacking in accepting the guest that Avram Avinu did. It's not der Inyan, it's not the idea as not only Re'os Einov, just the way he saw it, according to his eyes, he thought what the Mekayim in the mitzvah of Nos Orchim, he thought that he fulfilled the mitzvah of inviting the guest. No, the emes is given us it. But it was true, he actually did the mitzvah. How so? So the explanation we can say, the main concept of inviting guests, bringing guests, is emphasized. Not in so much as the act of the object of eating and drinking was the Eirech Bakum that the guest receives, nor in the Midas HaChesed. It's mostly in the attribute, the measure of kind, Derech HaChesed Sheba. That's the path of kindness which is in the way of giving to the guest. The Sima slave, the attention, whose onion is, and the interest, mitzad dem gavra, for the person. Dem der balabayis hamarech, the moedach, from the owner, the host, who's hosting to the guest. And the maisa gavra v'simas liboy, and this act of the person and his attention is in the rachnosas erich Avram Avinu, is by the guest that Avram Avinu brought in, given b'shleimus. It was in a complete way. Noch mehr. Not only that, even more than that, even what was accomplished by the guests from Achanosos Orchim, it was accomplished by Avram completely. Borum der Inyan Hanal, the above idea, the Svius Rotzuna Eirach from the Msima slave, the satisfaction of the guest that he is satisfied from the attention, the malachim also, they're satisfied. When they come as people, they are happy when they get attention. Who's giving you attention? Avram Avinu, who is so dear by Hashem, he gives you attention. Also in our parsha, it says, Ki yidaitiv, Loshen Chibo, I know him, I love him. Ubechlal ha'ovis heinen ha'markova, the ovis are the markova. Bos malosum bigoli lemalachim, their advantage, which is revealed to malachim, is hechef malas malachim, is higher than the level, the advantage of malachim. So definitely the contents, the main of Achnosas Erchim from Avram to the Malachim. So the Rebbe says, therefore, it was a real Achnosas Erchim to the extent that the attention that Avram Avinu gave them, which is a main part, and they received that attention, the angels, from Avram. This is Sichos, Shabbos Parshas Vayera, Tov Shin Chof Hei, and Chof Tes Elul, Tov Shin Chof Beis.